Maple Battalia was born on March 4, 1992, in New Delhi, India. After moving to Canada with her family, she spent most of her childhood in Surrey, British Columbia. Known as a beloved, intelligent, and hardworking young woman, Maple dreamed of becoming a doctor. She was also creatively inclined, venturing into the entertainment industry through modeling and acting. Getting into university was a breeze for her, and she commuted from home. While pursuing her dream of medical school, Maple was determined not to give up on her acting aspirations, striving to juggle both pursuits. Participating in beauty pageants and various photo shoots, she garnered recognition for her dynamism and talent. On the evening of September 27, 2011, Maple bid farewell to her family and headed to the campus library. She planned to study with a friend until late at night, and that's precisely what they did. Around 1 a.m., after saying goodbye to her friend, she walked to her car in the parking lot. Simultaneously, a man across the street heard what sounded like gunshots, hurried to the window, and witnessed a car speeding away. A shooting had taken place. Upon hearing the commotion, individuals quickly emerged and dialed 911. Maple Battalia was discovered on the ground, having been hit by 5 bullets, 3 of which struck her abdomen. Additionally, noticeable knife wounds were found on her head, indicating a multifaceted attack involving not only gunfire, but also a kitchen knife discovered nearby. Police and ambulance personnel arrived, offering initial aid to Maple before swiftly transporting her to a nearby hospital. Unfortunately, 19-year-old Maple Battalia succumbed to her injuries a few hours later, devastating her family upon learning the news shortly after. The disturbing details of the assault swiftly circulated throughout the campus, intensifying the horror due to its location. Despite the bustling environment, no witnesses were present on the 3rd floor of the parking lot, instilling fear among all students as they realized the assailant could be among them. Detectives launched the investigation, suspecting the attack as premeditated since Maple's wallet and belongings remained untouched, ruling out robbery. Following the murder, students on campus started to band together. The university administration also got involved, offering counseling to anyone in need. The police questioned Maple's family, searching for potential enemies. The family mentioned that while Maple had no known adversaries, they had concerns about Maple's ex-boyfriend. Maple had a tumultuous 4-year relationship with 20-year-old Gurjinder Dhaliwal, also known as Gary. Their relationship ended bitterly in early 2011 due to Gary's infidelity, causing Maple significant distress, leading to their breakup. It was confirmed that their relationship had deteriorated over time, marked by frequent arguments. After the split, Gary started stalking Maple, bombarding her with over 300 harassing text messages on one occasion. He even resorted to physical violence, spitting on one of Maple's friends outside a club and assaulting another when Maple intervened. Gary's aggressive actions led to his arrest for assault, resulting in a court order to stay away from Maple. A friend of Maple, previously assaulted by Gary, was reportedly at the library on the night of the incident, but did not witness the attack. The police had limited information about the events of that night until a crucial lead emerged from another witness who provided a detailed description of the attacker's car and its route. Although the license plate was obscured, the university's network of over 100 high-quality security cameras proved pivotal. Detectives released segments of the footage, seeking the public's help, and reached out to Maple's friends for more information. Individuals present with Maple that night came forward and provided voluntary statements. Surveillance footage captured a white vehicle entering the parking lot after 8 p.m., waiting until Maple and her friend arrived, indicating a carefully planned execution of the crime. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and over a year had passed since Maple's murder, yet her killer remained at large. During this time, as more information may have surfaced, detectives reached out to the public once again, urging anyone with even the slightest knowledge of the murder to come forward, breathing new life into the investigation. After months of diligent research, detectives interviewed everyone in the area with the same make and model of the car seen near the crime scene. Slowly, they started piecing things together. By late 2012, they made a significant breakthrough. A student named Gersamar Betty, a close friend of Gary, had rented a Dodge car shortly before the murder. He rented the vehicle on September 25, 2011 and returned it on September 28. Gary had been with him when he picked it up. Gersamar, then 21, took the car to a car wash just hours after the attack. Following this suspicious behavior, the police tracked the vehicle. Despite a year passing and the car being cleaned, they found a shell casing in the hood that matched the bullets from the crime scene. On December 1, 2012, authorities announced the arrest of 2 individuals in connection with Maple Battalia's murder a year earlier. Unsurprisingly, the suspects were Maple's ex-boyfriend, Gary Dallowal, and his best friend Gersamar Betty. Gary was charged with first-degree murder, while Gersamar faced second-degree murder charges for aiding Gary's escape. Maple's continued social success and achievements had infuriated Gary, who was jealous and possessive. Both Gary and Gersamar were brought to trial, but they pleaded not guilty. Due to numerous delays, the trial process dragged on for over 4 years. In 2016, 26-year-old Gary pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Maple's family, finding some peace in the justice served, thanked the authorities, Maple's friends, and the campus students who supported them throughout this ordeal. However, their gratitude soon turned to frustration. In a shocking decision in 2019, Gary was granted escorted temporary absences from prison. Gersamar Betty, then 27, was found not guilty of second-degree murder, but was sentenced to 22 months for being an accessory and is now free. In 2017, a documentary chronicling this tragedy was released, earning several awards. Since 2019, the Maple Battaglia Art Scholarship has been awarded annually, supporting a female student in her artistic endeavors. Before we dive into our next story, if you could take a moment to hit that like button, it would mean the world to us. A single click for you is a huge boost of encouragement for us. Adrienne Shelley was born on June 24, 1966, in Queens, New York. She grew up with 2 brothers, had a happy childhood, and developed an early interest in the performing arts. Recognizing her passion, her supportive family enrolled her in the Center for Performing Arts Training when she was just 10 years old. She continued her education at Boston University, specializing in film production. However, in her junior year, she decided to drop out and return to her roots in New York City to focus on her acting career. Adrienne starred in more than 20 plays, films, and television programs, and those around her eagerly awaited her big break. It wasn't long before those expectations were met. In the early 90s, Adrienne began landing leading roles in popular films. She became known for portraying dark characters, but in real life, she was always playful, bringing joy to those around her with a constant smile on her face. In 1996, Adrienne took her acting to the next level by founding her own theater company. She wrote several plays and directed her first film. By 2001, Adrienne met Andy Ostroy, a businessman and her future husband, through a mutual friend. After 2 years of dating, they decided to get married, and that same year they welcomed their daughter Sophie. Adrienne continued her passionate work, creating a comedy film called Waitress. She wrote, directed, and starred in the film, which garnered significant attention at various film festivals, despite her previous 2 films receiving little notice. Waitress was acquired by a film company and would go on to make $19 million at the box office. However, tragically, Adrienne wouldn't live to see its success. On November 1, 2006, Her husband, Andy, dropped her off at her office as usual and then headed to work. Later that day, when Andy couldn't reach Adrian, he became worried, which was unusual for her. Rushing to her office, he found her lifeless body. Adrian had been found hanging in the bathroom in an apparent suicide. Emergency responders arrived and pronounced her dead at 5:50 p.m. Initial investigations revealed no signs of trauma or struggle. The office hadn't been forcibly entered, and nothing was stolen. An autopsy confirmed that Adrian died from asphyxiation due to neck compression, all signs pointing to suicide. The New York Police Department classified Adrian's death as a suicide based on the scene, which shocked everyone who knew her. She didn't leave a note, and there were no known problems in her life. Adrian was known for being a joyful person. One of her common phrases among friends was, "You never know what's going to happen." This didn't suggest any suicidal tendencies. She simply believed in living life to the fullest. Her devastated husband, Andy, couldn't come to terms with Adrian taking her own life. He firmly believed she wouldn't willingly leave their daughter behind. Early in the investigation, Andy pressured the police, asserting that his wife would never commit suicide. He even arranged for a second autopsy, which confirmed the initial discovery. Adrian died from neck compression. Andy's relentless efforts sparked a renewed investigation, starting with revisiting the apartment, potentially a crime scene if Andy's suspicions were valid. Since discovering the body, Andy refrained from entering the apartment, fearing he might disturb the scene and compromise any potential evidence. Upon entering the apartment, the police scanned the area and found something peculiar in the bathroom. Near her lifeless body, they found a dusty shoe print. This print didn't correspond to Adrian or Andy's shoes. The police speculated it belonged to the person who had positioned Adrian where she was found. The only lead they had was this footprint, which was forensically analyzed, revealing traces of plaster dust. This discovery piqued the police's interest, leading to reconsidering foul play. They revisited everyone who had been in the apartment that day. The footwear of emergency responders, police officers, and others present was examined, but no matches were found. The investigation expanded to the building's vicinity, where ongoing construction was taking place just below Adrian's apartment. The construction site was covered in plaster dust, potentially explaining the residue found on the footprint. Their focus shifted to this area, uncovering another footprint in the dust identical to the one in the bathroom. The workers at the site were questioned about the shoe print. One of the workers originally questioned disclosed knowing someone whose shoes matched the description, 19-year-old Diego Pilco. On November 6, 2006, Diego Pilco was apprehended and questioned about Adrian's alleged suicide. Diego Pilco, an undocumented immigrant from Ecuador, had entered the United States in July of that year, although his friends claimed he had been there for several years. Shockingly, Diego admitted to killing Adrian as soon as he was taken into custody. According to his statement, the events unfolded in the following manner. Disturbed by the construction noise, Adrian went downstairs to complain and ended up in a heated argument with Diego. Claiming he was having a bad day, Diego mentioned that the argument escalated and he threw a hammer at her. Alarmed by the possibility of Adrian calling the police, which could lead to his deportation, Diego followed her. During the confrontation, Adrian fell, hitting her head and losing consciousness. Believing she was dead, Diego dragged her to the bathroom and staged the scene to make it appear as a suicide by hanging her from the shower rod with a sheet. Upon returning to work, Diego had a cut on his face. He told his friends that he had gotten into a scuffle with movers. However, the autopsy revealed that Adrian had died from strangulation, not from the blow to her head, indicating she was alive when Diego hanged her. Additionally, the police noticed discrepancies in Diego's narrative. There were no traces of plaster dust on Adrian's shoes and clothes, as Diego had claimed had she indeed gone downstairs. As the trial started, Diego's version of events changed, revealing the actual truth. Diego had illegally entered Adrian's apartment and stolen money from her purse. When confronted by Adrian and caught in the act, Diego grabbed her, covering her mouth, leading to a struggle. Following her fall, Diego decided to strangle her with the sheet and make it look like suicide. The case was classified as a murder. However, authorities faced a challenging decision. Opting for a murder charge could have led to only a maximum of 15 years in prison if Diego reverted to his initial admission. Hence, a plea deal was agreed upon between the defense and prosecution during the trial, resulting in Diego being sentenced to 25 years in prison. With a lifetime ban from re-entering the country, he would be released in his mid-40s after serving the sentence. After sentencing, Adrian's family sued the company that employed Diego, citing negligence. The company had disregarded hiring undocumented immigrants. Diego, like many co-workers, was unauthorized to work in the country. Family members argued that if Diego had legal documentation, Adrian might still be alive. Diego had been working to pay off his smuggling debt and financially support his family in Ecuador. To enter the U.S., he had paid $15,000 to be smuggled in. Fearing losing his job, he opted to murder Adrian rather than face deportation. Following the tragedy, Adrian's husband, Andy, gained national attention by referencing Donald Trump and his anti-immigrant rhetoric. Some media outlets tried to link Adrian's murder to support Trump's campaign, seeking to collaborate with Andy. Rejecting the politicization of his wife's death, Andy stated it was unfair to attribute Diego's immigration status to the atrocious act, emphasizing the importance of sticking to the facts. The lawsuit against the company did not end favorably for Andy. The court ruled that the company held no responsibility in the murder. It marked a bitter and disheartening conclusion to the legal battle for Andy. Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel lived in Kildare, Ireland. Patrick was a business and French teacher at the Dublin Institute of Technology, while Geraldine held a senior executive role in the legal department of a state-run organization. Despite their successful careers and financial stability, the couple yearned to start a family. After 20 years of marriage and unsuccessful attempts to conceive, they decided to pursue adoption, fully aware of the lengthy and complex process in their country. Nevertheless, they remained optimistic. In 2006, their patience paid off when they received news from Russian authorities about a 2-year-old girl available for adoption. Anastasia Kriegel, born in February 2004, was placed in an orphanage shortly after birth due to her biological mother's inability to care for her. The Kriegel family finalized her adoption on August 10, 2006, naming her Anna, while also honoring her original name. They filled Anna's life with love, providing her with enriching experiences like ice skating, skiing, and family vacations. Despite their care and affection, Anna encountered challenges stemming from her early life struggles, especially in education. With difficulties in English, her mother's support was crucial, and her time in the orphanage made it hard to socialize with peers. During a standard health checkup, doctors discovered a tumor in Anna's right ear, leading to a 5.5-hour surgery that resulted in hearing loss in that ear and partial vision loss in one eye. These impairments impacted her academic performance, prompting her family to seek specialized counseling. Additionally, Anna faced bullying at school after her adoption status was disclosed, causing her to feel isolated and lonely. Seeking solace online, Anna created social media accounts and a YouTube channel. While these platforms connected her with new people, they also exposed her to cyberbullying. Anonymous individuals behind fake accounts targeted her with hurtful comments, damaging her self-esteem and fueling her disillusionment. When Anna confided in her mother, Geraldine intervened, advising her daughter to limit her online presence. Geraldine also approached the school principal to address the bullying problem, leading to increased monitoring of Anna's social media profiles by her peers. One evening, 4 young individuals confronted Anna during a walk, subjecting her to their usual taunts and harassment, with one even physically assaulting her. Distraught, Anna turned to her parents for comfort and recounted the distressing incident. Taking immediate action, Geraldine and Patrick reported the incident to the authorities. However, the 4 boys only received a warning, escaping any further consequences, leaving Anna and her family disheartened by the insufficient response. After recent events unfolded, Anna's family made the decision to personally escort her to school and attend her classes with her every day. Anna, feeling desperate for attention and wanting to express her inner turmoil, resorted to creating multiple fake accounts and leaving hostile comments on her own photos. She hoped that by doing this, her peers would realize the seriousness of her situation and establish closer connections with her. Concerned that their daughter might turn to harmful coping mechanisms, the family sought assistance from a specialized organization that focuses on guiding youth. Upon learning about Anna's story, the organization recognized the severity of her issues and organized a therapy program for her. Even though she attended weekly sessions, Anna continued to feel isolated at school and struggled to interact effectively with her peers. Thanks to her family's dedicated efforts, Anna eventually managed to form a small group of friends and engage in social activities like sleepovers. On May 14, 2018, the day started like any other for the Kriegel family. Geraldine traveled to Dublin for work, while Anna had a scheduled appointment with a psychologist later in the day. Patrick, enjoying his retirement at home, was in the garden when he heard the doorbell and saw Anna accompanied by a companion. After changing out of her school uniform, Anna informed her father about her anticipated return and left with her friend for St. Catherine's Park. Initially, Patrick wasn't concerned as the park was nearby, and Anna appeared to be doing well. However, upon Geraldine's return from work that evening, she noticed Anna's absence. Patrick informed her that Anna had gone to the park with a male acquaintance. Given Anna's past interactions with her peers, this seemed unusual, prompting her mother to message Anna, urging her to come home. With no response from Anna, who usually replied promptly, Geraldine became alarmed and threatened to involve the police. The couple drove through various streets towards the park, trying to contact Anna's schoolmates. With limited information about the boy Anna had been last seen with, the friends they reached out to couldn't provide substantial leads. 4 hours after Anna left home, her family reported her disappearance to the authorities, detailing recent events and describing the companion she was with. The police identified the boy, but opted not to reveal his identity due to his age, questioning him regarding Anna's disappearance. During the interrogation, the boy mentioned that he and Anna had walked in the park and parted ways around 5:40 p.m., unaware of Anna's subsequent movements. Following his statement, the police launched a formal search for Anna Kriegel, scanning the area and reviewing surveillance footage. During the operation, footage surfaced showing Anna with Boy 1 leaving the park through a different route at 5:14 p.m. Shortly after leaving the park, Anna disappeared without a trace, prompting a renewed focus on Boy 1. Boy 1 then revealed that he had communicated with another friend that night, claiming Anna had feelings for this friend, whom we will refer to as Boy 2 to protect identities. Boy 1 relayed Anna's emotions to Boy 2 and attempted to arrange a meeting. Subsequently, both Boy 1 and Boy 2 were held for questioning regarding Anna's disappearance. Boy 2's account differed, stating he was surprised by Anna's presence, which Boy 1 had orchestrated, unaware of her feelings. Denying any reciprocated feelings, he recalled feeling annoyed and leaving. On his way home, he alleged being attacked by 2 unknown individuals, retaliating by striking one, prompting them to flee. With injuries on his arm and leg, Boy 2 suspected these individuals might be tied to Anna's abduction. Detailed descriptions of the attackers were documented, and Boy 2's belongings were collected for forensic evaluation. Detectives, eager to expedite the case, deployed dive teams to investigate nearby water bodies and assigned a 60-person rescue team to continue the search. Anna's disappearance quickly became one of Ireland's most widely discussed news stories. A witness came forward, pointing to Glenwood House adjacent to St. Catherine's Park, claiming to have seen the youths heading there on the day of the incident. This 19th-century structure, situated on a 42-hectare farm, was a dilapidated farmhouse with a collapsed roof and debris covering the area. Over time, it had become a popular meeting spot for local teens, grabbing the detectives' attention. On Thursday, May 17th, the detectives initiated a thorough search of the property, meticulously examining every path leading to the abandoned building. Inside, the building was incredibly dark, with boards scattered throughout the debris-filled rooms, barely letting in any light. The officers detected a pungent smell and began searching for its source. Soon, they came upon a naked female body. Tragically, it was Anna Kriegel. Her body bore numerous wounds, and her neck was tightly bound with duct tape. She lay amid shattered glass bottles, wearing only her black socks. It was evident she had bravely fought for her life. Nearby, pieces of clothing, a shattered cell phone, a brick, and a stick were found. This horrific discovery raised countless questions. How had Anna ended up there? Who was responsible? And what were the suspects hiding from the police? Anna's body showed over 50 wounds, especially on her head and neck, with the cause of death determined to be blunt force trauma. Based on forensic evidence, the estimated time of death was around 5:30 p.m., just minutes after she separated from the boys. The tragic details quickly became public, shocking many, but the deepest sorrow was felt by Anna's family. The Glenwood House near St. Catherine's Park, once a place where children played peacefully, had become the scene of a horrific event. Anastasia Anna Kriegel's funeral took place on May 18, 2018, attended by hundreds. After reviewing all the evidence, the police announced 2 arrests on May 24th, shaking the community. The prime suspects from the start, who were last seen with Anna, Boy 1 and Boy 2, were taken into custody. Among Boy 2's belongings, police found Anna's bloody black gloves, shin guards, and knee pads. Additionally, Anna's blood was discovered on Boy 2's shoes and clothes, though his family maintained his innocence. The identities of the young suspects were protected, even as they were brought to court in unmarked vehicles. Despite the severity of the crime, it was crucial to keep the identities of juvenile offenders confidential. All interrogations were conducted with their parents present. Boy 2 denied involvement in the murder. According to Boy 1, he had arranged for them to meet, but decided to leave them alone after a while, noticing they were heading towards the farmhouse. As he departed, he heard Anna's screams and sensed something was wrong. Returning, he found Boy 2 attacking Anna, who threatened him with a stick, forcing him to leave the scene. It later emerged that Boy 2 had shared his sinister plan with Boy 1 beforehand. He knew what was going to happen. Both boys were released on bail until their trials, allowing them to spend the summer with their families, which enraged the public. The trials began on April 30th, 2019, held behind closed doors. Geraldine and Patrick attended every session. Finally, on June 12, 2019, the sentencing took place. Boy 2 received a life sentence, eligible for parole after 12 years due to his age at the time of the crime. Boy 1, without direct physical evidence of involvement, was found guilty of aiding the murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Hannah Foster was born on August 31st, 1985 in Hampshire, England. She was a kind and friendly individual, always eager to help others, which is why she aspired to become a doctor. To secure a spot in medical school and excel, she knew she had to maintain good grades. Thankfully, her family stood by her side, supporting her every step of the way. In addition to her academic pursuits, Hannah enjoyed a vibrant social life. During high school, she frequently socialized with friends, spending weekends with them. On March 14, 2003, Hannah decided to take a break from her intense study sessions and go out with her friend Helen. Around 8 o'clock, they headed to a bar for a meal and some drinks. However, the bar was mainly frequented by middle-aged patrons, not exactly an ideal spot for two young girls. Eventually, they chose to relocate to another bar where they enjoyed the rest of the evening. When it was time to head home, a security camera captured them walking down the street towards the bus stop. Eventually, Hannah decided to walk home, as the stop was merely a kilometer away from her house, thinking she could manage without taking the bus. When the bus arrived, Helen bid her goodbye, assuming she would make it home safely. That was the last time they saw each other, as Hannah began her walk home. As hours passed and Hannah did not return home, her family grew increasingly anxious. By 5 a.m., their concern had escalated significantly. If she had stayed at a friend's place, they expected she would have reached out in some way. Despite her phone being active, she was unresponsive. Before contacting the authorities, Hannah's family consulted with Helen, the last person to see her. Helen recounted the events of their night out, and Hannah's other friends were contacted to see if anyone had seen her. Unfortunately, nobody had any information on her whereabouts. Following the family's call, the police arrived to further discuss the situation. A team of officers went out to search for Hannah, tracing the route she would have taken home. Typically, in missing person cases, the last person to see the individual is closely scrutinized. Initially, Helen was questioned by the police. During the interrogation, Helen detailed their activities that night, from visiting the bar to parting ways at the bus stop. Surveillance footage from the bar and bus stop supported Helen's account. Helen cooperated and was subsequently eliminated as a suspect. During Hannah's disappearance, her phone remained powered on, allowing authorities to track her movements. It seemed that both Hannah and her phone were swiftly passing through various locations, indicating that she was likely in a vehicle. The police reached out to her mobile service provider to access her call and message history. Upon reviewing the records, something caught the investigators' attention. At the start of her disappearance, a call was made from Hannah's phone to the UK Emergency Services number, but it was silent. Even though the operator answered, they heard no response and asked the caller to press a button if they needed help, which did not happen. Sensing an issue, a team of officers decided to replay the call, this time increasing the volume. In the enhanced recording, they overheard a conversation between a girl and a man. Although the recording was encrypted and shared with the media, the original audio was kept confidential. From the phone call, law enforcement deduced that Hannah was traveling by car and identified the man's accent as South Asian. Subsequently, detectives pursued their investigation, noting that Hannah's phone was still active and attempted to trace its location. The phone was tracked to Portsmouth, approximately 30 kilometers from her last known location, with ongoing efforts to pinpoint its exact whereabouts in the city. Hannah's bag, containing her phone, was discovered at a waste disposal site, hinting at a grim turn of events for the police. Initially labeled as a kidnapping, the case evolved into a potential murder after some of her personal belongings were found. Unfortunately, on March 16th, Hannah Foster's deceased body was found in a rural area, concealed among the bushes. She had been strangled, displaying marks on her face, neck, and deep scratches on her body, indicating a struggle for survival. Forensic analysis indicated that she had been sexually assaulted before her death, with DNA evidence, particularly semen, collected from her body. Using this DNA sample, authorities cross-referenced it with their database of offenders but found no matches, resulting in the preservation of the sample. Detectives extensively reviewed CCTV footage from locations where her phone had been tracked. Ultimately, they determined that Hannah was abducted and transported in a white van, captured by multiple cameras. Although the license plate was unclear, they identified the make and model, noting a limited number of such vans in the country, significantly narrowing their search. The detective's suspect was a South Asian man, likely from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, aged between 35 and 40. A few days after the body was found, the investigation took a new turn when a suspect was identified, Maninder Singh Kohli. Maninder, a native of India, was a father of two living in Southampton. He had been in England for many years and owned a white van. Working in the transport industry, Maninder's routes matched the locations reported to the police. His employer was the one who tipped off the authorities. On the day Hannah disappeared, Maninder arrived at work looking tense and agitated. Scratches on his face aroused his employer's suspicion. Despite having no criminal record in either India or England, and being considered an exemplary citizen in both countries, the police decided to investigate Maninder. His neighbors described him as a hardworking man. Even without a criminal record or a profile matching a potential killer, the police decided to search Maninder's van, which was found parked outside his workplace. It was unusual for him to leave it there. Examinations of the van's back seat revealed that the semen found matched the DNA from Hannah's body. Additionally, blood found on the back seat was confirmed to be Hannah Foster's. This evidence made Maninder the prime suspect in the crime. On March 19th, the police went to his house to question him, but his wife said he had gone to India to visit his mother. Maninder's brother, a police officer in India, made the detectives uneasy. They feared Maninder would never be caught, and their fears were soon realized when the Indian government provided no response. Maninder's father appeared on Indian television, stating that if his son had committed murder, he should pay for it. Maninder's lawyer claimed he was wrongly accused and firmly believed in his innocence. No one knew where the suspect was, leaving Hannah's family desperate for justice. Neither the UK nor Indian governments pursued the suspect. So Hannah's family traveled to India to expedite the case. They gave interviews to Indian media and distributed flyers with Hannah's photo, offering a reward for any information leading to an arrest. A few days after Maninder arrived in the country, a taxi driver contacted British authorities, reporting a passenger who strongly resembled him. The man had introduced himself as Mike, claimed to have worked as a courier in England, and said he was on holiday in India. Despite the information provided, it did not lead to his capture and the case went cold. A routine police check stopped a bus traveling from India to Nepal. Recognizing Maninder's face from the news, the police officer identified him. Although there was no extradition agreement between Nepal and the UK, it was assumed he was trying to escape there. Maninder had already assumed a new identity, changed his appearance, secured a new job, and even had a new wife. Hannah's family and friends had hoped that the situation would come to an end, with Maninder's extradition to England. However, despite his arrest, the extradition did not happen immediately. Maninder even confessed on television shows, admitting to kidnapping, raping, and killing Hannah when asked by a host.
I abducted, raped, and killed Hannah Foster.
Despite this recorded confession and knowing his whereabouts in India, authorities did not promptly send him to England. With the help of his brother, Maninder hired a team of lawyers and made 35 appeals to prevent his extradition. However, these efforts failed in 2007, and he was eventually extradited to England to face trial, arriving on July 28th. Charged with rape and murder, Maninder pleaded not guilty, denying the interviews he gave in his home country. Initially, he claimed to have found Hannah's body in a car, panicked, and disposed of it where the police later found it. However, this story contradicted the CCTV footage and Hannah's location history. DNA testing in England confirmed that the semen found on Hannah's body belonged to Maninder Singh Kohli. According to the prosecution, on the night of the incident, Hannah bid her friend farewell at the bus stop and started walking home alone. Maninder, on his way home from work, saw Hannah walking alone and decided to approach her. Sensing danger, Hannah discreetly dialed the emergency number, likely keeping her phone in her bag or back pocket, causing a faint recording. VanDer coerced Hannah into his car, potentially offering her a ride or using force. After driving a few kilometers, he took her to a secluded area where he raped and then strangled her before disposing of her body at a waste site. He then discarded her belongings, not realizing that her phone was still on and could potentially trace back to him. In November 2008, VanDer stood trial in England and was convicted of Hannah Foster's murder, receiving a life sentence with a minimum of 24 years. He may be considered for parole in 2032. Jade Janks was born on October 14, 1983 in Texas, USA. Her parents, Jenny and Steve, made the tough decision to divorce when Jade was 10 years old. 2 years later, Jenny remarried to Tom Merriman, a 39-year-old man who became Jade's stepfather. Initially, Jade and Tom had a distant relationship, but over time, they developed a close bond, and Jade started to see Tom as a father figure. After 2 years of marriage, Jenny and Tom welcomed their son, Cash. Despite having different biological fathers, Jade and Cash always got along well. Unfortunately, Jenny and Tom's relationship faced challenges, leading Tom to file for divorce, citing physical abuse and verbal harassment. Despite this, Jade maintained a strong connection with Tom even after the divorce. Following high school, Jade pursued her passion for architectural design at a private college. With determination, she entered the design industry, eventually establishing her successful interior design company. Over the years, Tom battled alcohol and substance abuse, particularly during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. In an effort to support him, Jade decided to move into the house next to Tom's to assist him through his struggles. On December 15, 2020, the 64-year-old Tom suffered a severe fall at home, leading to his hospitalization at Scripps Hospital in Encinitas. After 2 weeks of treatment for alcohol withdrawal, he was transferred to a rehabilitation center. While Tom was in the hospital, 37-year-old Jade took on the responsibility of cleaning and managing his home. On December 23rd, as she was cleaning, she noticed the computer screen wake up from sleep mode, revealing a wallpaper of a woman's breasts. Upon closer inspection, Jade was horrified to recognize a birthmark. She was staring at a photo of her own breasts. Jade logged into the computer and soon discovered hundreds of nude photos of herself. Most of these photos were taken when she was under 18. They had originally been taken while she was with an ex-boyfriend, but she had never shared them with anyone. Jade couldn't comprehend how Tom had accessed these photos. Having viewed Tom as a father figure since she was 14, Jade felt deeply betrayed by what she had found. Distraught, Jade messaged a friend, confiding in her about the shocking discovery and expressing her distress. She mentioned that she felt so violated she could no longer shower alone, as many of the photos showed her in the shower. A week after Jade's shocking discovery, on New Year's Day, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department received a phone call from a man named Adam Sipliak. He claimed that his friend and ex-girlfriend, Jade Janks, might have killed her stepfather. He alleged that Jade had invited him over the night before, confessed to killing her stepfather, and asked for his help in moving the body. Adam stated that he had no idea what was really happening and had not seen Tom or the body. Frightened, he had quickly left the house. Following this call, the police contacted Tom's friends and family, but no one had seen him. Tom had last been seen on New Year's Eve by neighbors, who saw him getting out of a car with a walker. On January 1, 2021, police arrived at Tom's house for a welfare check and noticed Jade leaving. They asked her to come to the station for a statement, which she willingly agreed to. Jade told the police that she had picked Tom up from the rehabilitation center, but did not know his current whereabouts. She then requested a lawyer and refused to say anything further. The police allowed Jade to go home, but obtained a search warrant for the properties and returned hours later. Despite an exhaustive search, they found no trace of Tom. They spent hours combing through the house, their efforts hampered by the night. Around 7 a.m., an officer walking from Tom's house to the garage noticed a pile of trash in a wheelbarrow. Upon closer inspection, he discovered Tom's body wrapped in a blanket and covered with garbage. He was still wearing the hospital wristband, t-shirt, and pajamas he had on the day he was discharged. Jade was immediately arrested and charged with her stepfather's murder. Even though Jade professed her innocence, the evidence painted a different picture, prompting the police to investigate her phone. The text messages uncovered a detailed timeline of the murder's planning and execution. Compounding matters, Jade was not acting alone. When Jade stumbled upon the nude photos, she sought support from a security guard named Alan Roach. The trial of Jade Janks kicked off on December 21, 2022, nearly 2 years after Tom's passing. Despite maintaining her innocence, Jade contended that she was not involved in the murder, attributing Tom's demise to his declining health and prescription drug use. According to Jade, her intention was to have a confrontation with Tom once she brought him back from rehab and had reached out to Alan for moral support. On December 31st, despite her emotional state, Jade embarked on a mission to aid Tom. She fetched him from rehab a little after 11 a.m., carrying a substantial bag of medications, including the sleep aid Ambien. Jade urged Tom to take his prescribed meds. Later, she made a stop at a shopping center and texted Alan, providing him with her home address for their meeting. With no response from Alan, Jade opted to take Tom home unaccompanied. Upon arrival, Tom was too feeble to walk. Unsure how to proceed, Jade contemplated returning him to the rehab facility, which declined re-entry due to strict COVID protocols. In the interim, Alan messaged Jade that he couldn't make it over, but would send his friend, Brian Salomon, to assist. Despite having never met Brian, Jade turned down his help upon his arrival, causing Brian to depart. Subsequently, she contacted her friend Adam for assistance in getting Tom indoors. Adam declined and exited the premises, mirroring Brian's actions. Adam's statement to the authorities matched Jade's version of events. Tom never exited the car as he was too incapacitated to move. Jade left him there to sleep, providing a blanket and a pillow. When she checked on him on New Year's Day, she noticed how cold his body was and realized he had passed away. Panicked, Jade wrapped him in a blanket and arranged items around him to make it appear like a pile of debris. When questioned about not calling 911, she mentioned her fear of being held responsible for his death. However, the jury did not believe her account. Adam informed the police that Jade had drugged Tom before strangling him to death. In Jade's car, a plastic bag was discovered, believed to have been used to suffocate Tom, with his DNA on it. There was a theory that Tom had been manually strangled. Nevertheless, the autopsy showed no signs of strangulation, leading to the conclusion that Tom had died from acute zolpidem intoxication. During the court proceedings, Jade mentioned the nude photos found on her stepfather's computer, claiming they were collected without her knowledge when she was 16. She stated that this inappropriate behavior caused her emotional distress as she saw Tom as a father figure. However, her attorneys did not use this as part of her defense. None of the individuals named, Adam Sipliak, Brian Salomon, or Alan Roach, faced charges in this case. Jade was the only one accused. The defense argued that Adam's confession about Jade was fabricated, lacked credibility, and was based solely on speculation. After 2 days of jury deliberation, Jade Janks was found guilty of first-degree murder in Tom Merriman's death.
Guilty of the crime of murder.
She was sentenced to 25 years in prison and will be eligible for parole at 64. Jade maintains her innocence of murder, claiming Tom died from an overdose, but admitting guilt for concealing his body. Vanessa Guillen was born on September 30th, 1999 in Houston, Texas. The daughter of Mexican immigrants, Vanessa began her education in Houston and later attended Cesar Chavez High School. She was described as brave, friendly, energetic, and athletic, with a love for sports. Vanessa harbored a dream of joining the military from a young age, a dream fully supported by her family. In 2018, she graduated from high school with honors. Following her graduation in June, Vanessa applied to enlist in the Army and was accepted shortly after. Starting as a private, she swiftly advanced to become a weapons maintenance specialist, excelling in her role at Fort Hood, the nation's largest military base accommodating numerous soldiers. However, at the start of 2020, Vanessa's shift in behavior was noticed by her mother, who sensed that something was amiss. Vanessa had become withdrawn, had trouble sleeping, and was distant from her family. Eventually, she confided in her mother, sharing that a sergeant on the base had been sexually harassing her. Vanessa explained that the sergeant had been monitoring her during exercises, causing discomfort. Despite this revelation, Vanessa assured her mother that she would handle the situation without disclosing the sergeant's identity. Unexpectedly, on April 22nd, Vanessa disappeared from the military base, leaving her colleagues puzzled by her absence. The day before she went missing, security cameras captured Vanessa at a nearby restaurant. She had spoken with her sister, Mara, the night before her disappearance, assuring her that everything seemed fine and there was nothing suspicious. On April 23rd, Vanessa's family was notified of her disappearance by the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division, who issued a missing soldier alert. Fort Hood Military Police also involved local law enforcement in the search efforts. A search operation was launched, with military personnel, civilians, and military police participating. Initially, a $15,000 reward was offered for information on Vanessa's whereabouts, which was later increased to $25,000. Many questioned how Vanessa could vanish from the highly secure military base without being noticed leaving. Equipped with advanced technology, cameras, and numerous checkpoints, it seemed implausible. Vanessa's family actively engaged in the search and tirelessly raised awareness. In an interview with the press, Vanessa's mother expressed determination to find her daughter alive and even threatened to have Fort Hood base shut down if necessary. The investigation was in full swing, with the FBI teaming up with the military to ramp up the search, swiftly capturing national attention. In the 2 weeks following her disappearance, more than 300 interviews were conducted, and over 10,000 hours were spent on the case. But details remained concealed from the public until later. Vanessa was not supposed to be on base on April 22nd, but a sergeant had called her in to work in the armory. A witness reported seeing her leave the room and head towards another to verify some equipment serial numbers. This room was under the control of Aaron David Robinson, a 20-year-old combat engineer like Vanessa. That evening, Vanessa left her bank card, military ID, and keys in the armory following Aaron's request and going to his room. Aaron claimed Vanessa entered, helped him with the serial numbers, and then left. He believed she was going to the motor pool for her duties. However, investigators discovered from phone records that she never arrived there. The final message sent to Vanessa's phone came from Aaron Robinson, who was also the last person to see her. He insisted he departed the base that night, heading to his off-base residence to spend time with his girlfriend, Cecily. The next morning, he returned to work at 6:30 a.m., maintaining his innocence in Vanessa's disappearance. About a month after Vanessa vanished, detectives interviewed a group of witnesses and gathered crucial information. Several witnesses reported seeing Aaron wrestling with a box around the base, struggling to load it into his vehicle. It became evident that Aaron David Robinson was linked to Vanessa's disappearance. A report was filed and his phone was confiscated. Using a data extraction program, investigators retrieved all of the data from his phone, such as texts, images, and location histories. Phone records unveiled that Aaron made multiple calls to his girlfriend on the night of the incident, contradicting his initial claim that he was with her at home. The police questioned Cecily about Aaron's calls, and she explained she'd misplaced her phone that night, so Aaron phoned to help locate it. Detectives found her account inconsistent and presented more evidence that prompted Cecily to alter her story. She eventually confessed that they had taken a lengthy drive to Belton, Texas for stargazing and had returned home without any issues. By checking Aaron's GPS records, the police validated they had been in Texas near a bridge. Later, the phone showed movement northward for 2 hours, pinpointing areas for focused search efforts. The search began along the Leon River, where a burned plastic container and scorched ground were discovered, along with a decomposing odor, but no sign of Vanessa was found. Cadaver dogs combed the area once more, with investigators theorizing that wild animals might have disturbed the site. 6 days following these fruitless searches, contractors near the Leon River stumbled upon Vanessa's remains.
Confirmed that human remains were found about 20 miles from Fort Hood, and it is believed that those remains are those of 20-year-old Private Vanessa Guillen, who disappeared from the base.
One of the workers noted that the remains were mixed with soil and lime, making identification challenging. The autopsy revealed that Vanessa had been killed by blunt force trauma from a hammer, and her body had been dismembered and buried. Upon this discovery, detectives returned to Cecily Aguilar and interviewed her again that evening. To unravel the web of lies, Cecily confessed to the unfolding events of the murder night. On April 22nd, Aaron called Cecily and admitted to killing a female soldier at Fort Hood, placing her body in a box and leaving the base with it. He then picked up Cecily from a gas station, and together they drove to the Leon River. Arriving there, Aaron revealed the body in a box to Cecily. Initially, they tried to burn the body, but due to the fire getting out of control, they decided to dig 3 graves and bury Vanessa together. It wasn't their last visit to the site. A few days later, Aaron and Cecily returned to the Leon River with concrete purchased by Vanessa on Facebook. They tried to burn the remains again, dug 3 more graves, poured concrete over the body and buried it. They disposed of their clothes, cleaned up, and carried on as if nothing had happened. Just 48 hours after Vanessa's disappearance, Cecily boldly posted a selfie on Instagram with the caption, "The most dangerous woman is one who doesn't need to be saved. She's never been a damsel in distress." As Cecily disclosed these grim details to the authorities, Aaron was detained in his room at Fort Hood, unaware of Cecily's cooperation. Detectives asked Cecily to call Aaron and talk about the murder. In the ensuing conversation, Aaron incriminated himself, admitting his involvement as a conspirator in the main perpetrator, which led to his subsequent arrest. On June 30th, Cecily told Aaron to stay in his room. Sensing that he was about to be apprehended, Aaron fled the base. On July 2nd, authorities found him walking down the street, but Aaron took his own life as law enforcement closed in. The FBI charged Cecily Aguilar the next day and revealed the events to the public. After 3 years of legal proceedings, Cecily was found guilty of murder in 2023 and sentenced to 30 years in prison. The motive behind this heinous crime was a burning question in the public's mind. The truth emerged 2 years after the tragic event in 2022. On the night of the incident, Vanessa noticed Cecily's photo on Aaron's phone lock screen. She mentioned Cecily's marriage to another soldier, which enraged Aaron. Fearing that Vanessa might expose him, he resorted to killing her with a hammer. Many have speculated that the military sought to protect its reputation and cover up the murder. Vanessa's legal team argued that Aaron killed her without cause, and the army tried to suppress the truth. Fort Hood officials stated they had no evidence of Aaron harassing Vanessa after the murder, dismissing the family's claims and downplaying her experiences. After Vanessa's tragic death, the U.S. Congress passed the Vanessa Guillen Act, mandating independent investigations into allegations of sexual harassment and assault within the military. This law aims to improve the safety of military personnel and ensure that such allegations are taken seriously and investigated independently. Tim and Charlene Bosma were living in Ancaster, Ontario, a town with 40,000 residents. By 2013, the couple had been married for 3 years and welcomed their baby girl. Their relationship was going well until after their daughter's birth, when financial troubles started appearing, leaving them uncertain about their next steps. To ease their financial strain, Tim and Charlene decided to sell their truck in May 2013 and purchase a simpler car. On the evening of May 6, 2013, after putting their daughter to bed, Tim paced nervously around the house, waiting for a potential buyer to visit. A man had called earlier, showing interest in the truck and agreed to come by around 7 p.m. However, as 9 p.m. approached and the sky darkened, Tim became more uneasy. He shared his concerns with Charlene, contemplating whether he should go with the buyers or simply hand them the keys. Charlene advised against trusting the buyers, warning that they might try to steal the truck. As they debated, 2 men showed up at their door on foot, saying they needed a car as they didn't have one. One of them mentioned being dropped off by a friend. Despite his reservations, Tim bid Charlene goodbye, got into the truck with the 2 men and drove away. After over an hour passed with no sight of Tim, Charlene grew worried and attempted to call him, but her calls went straight to voicemail. She was concerned since Tim had fully charged his phone before leaving. She promptly contacted the police, and Hamilton police took the 32-year-old man's disappearance seriously, deploying search dogs and rescue teams. Initially, the police suspected that the men may have taken Tim's phone and left him somewhere while fleeing with the truck. However, there was no evidence to support this theory. Charlene made an emotional plea to the media, urging Tim's captors to release him and emphasizing their daughter's need for her father.
It was just a truck. It is just a truck. You don't need him. But I do. And our daughter needs her daddy back. So please let him come home. So we need him to come home.
Her plea highlighted that the truck was the motive behind Tim's disappearance. 3 days later, a breakthrough emerged in the case. Tim's phone was found in a grassy area near a construction site, roughly 20 minutes from Hamilton. A construction worker discovered it, but there was no sign of Tim or the truck nearby. While the phone itself was not critical, as the police had already obtained the necessary information from the telecommunications company, it did offer valuable insights. Analyzing the data led them to trace the number that contacted Tim, registered under a false name and address. The number had been used multiple times, and the person who called before Tim caught the detective's interest, Igor Tumanenko, a military veteran with a similar truck. When contacted, Igor disclosed that he had been approached by the same 2 men just 2 days before Tim's disappearance and had gone on a test drive with them. Unlike Tim, Igor returned home safely, likely due to his physique, military background, and self-defense skills. Igor provided the investigators with a description of the men, noting that the taller one carried a small bag on his shoulder and had a wrist tattoo that read, "Ambition." During a press conference, the police disclosed composite sketches of the 2 men. A significant breakthrough occurred 2 days later when Toronto police identified the suspects. One of them turned out to be a young millionaire named Dylan Millard. 27-year-old Dylan Millard gained national fame as a prodigy and made headlines as a helicopter pilot. Born in 1985, Dylan was the heir to his grandfather's multi-million-dollar airline company. However, at the age of 20, he dropped out of university and chose a life of leisure, throwing poolside parties, driving luxurious cars, and always being seen with popular women. Following his father's unexpected death, Dellen inherited the family fortune, estimated at around $20 million. Police began monitoring Dellen and discovered his close association with Mark Smick, who owned a truck identical to Tim's. Unlike Dellen, Mark didn't come from a wealthy family. He made a living selling illegal substances, and the police compiled a lengthy list of his offenses. Surveillance footage showed Dellen driving Tim's truck while Mark was seen driving his vehicle. To avoid detection, they swapped Tim's truck license plate with Mark's to secure the vehicle they wanted. Next, they needed to dispose of its owner, Tim Bosma, and headed to the Millard Air hangar late at night. Upon entering the hangar, Dellen sent a message to the Millard Air employees, instructing them to stay away. Obediently, they complied, but one employee spotted the truck mentioned in the news and took a photo. Anonymously, he tipped off the police, requesting them to investigate. The photo confirmed it was the same truck, but by Friday, the truck was already gone. Fortunately, the police had strong evidence to work with. 4 days after Tim's disappearance, on May 11th, Dellen Millard was arrested. At his mother's house, the police found the truck hidden inside a large trailer parked in the driveway, partially dismantled and meticulously cleaned. The police also searched for the trailer that had been attached to the truck. Back at the farm, they discovered an industrial incinerator used for burning waste, which had been active the night Tim vanished. Forensic experts found small bone fragments, including human teeth, on site. Due to the intense fire, obtaining DNA was impossible. However, after 2 days of investigation, the remains were presumed to be Tim's, and on May 14th, Tim Bosma's death was officially confirmed. During the questioning of Dellen and his accomplice, the police began to wonder if there were other victims. It was at this point that Toronto police realized they had made significant oversights. Without these mistakes, Tim Bosma might still be alive. A year earlier, Laura Babcock had mysteriously disappeared. The 23-year-old had met Dellen at a Toronto bar and dated him for over a month. Laura struggled with getting her life on track, faced depressive episodes, and clashed with her parents over household rules. For Laura's 22nd birthday, her ex-boyfriend Sean Lerner threw a party where Dellen and Christina, who later became Dellen's girlfriend, were also present. Dellen and Christina formed a connection at the party and started dating. Laura reached out to Christina, congratulating her and adding, I was with him just 2 weeks ago. Christina was upset by this message and informed Dellen. Dellen promised to handle the situation. On July 3, 2012, Laura left her parents' home to meet Dellen and was never seen again. Laura's family and ex-boyfriend reported her disappearance to the police, but the authorities dismissed it, citing her mental state, and declined to pursue the case. Refusing to let the matter rest, Laura's ex-boyfriend, Sean, took it upon himself to investigate further. He retrieved Laura's last call logs and traced them back to Dellen Millard. Sean reached out to Dellen, who initially ignored his calls. Eventually, Dellen agreed to meet and discuss the situation. He claimed that Laura had asked him for illegal substances, which he refused to provide, and stated that he didn't want to see her again. Sean didn't buy this story and promptly relayed all the information he had gathered to the police, insisting that Dellen Millard was a suspect in Laura's disappearance. Once again, the detectives dismissed his concerns. After Tim's murder came to light, Sean contacted the Hamilton police and recounted the events of the previous year. This time, the Hamilton police pursued his lead. During a search of Mark's house, they discovered Laura's iPad and a sports bag labeled with her name and address. The crucial evidence was found on the iPad, where they located a video of Mark confessing to raping Laura and burning her body. Toronto police also seized Laura's phone. In addition to investigating Laura's murder, the police had previously overlooked the death of Wayne Millard, Dellen's father. Following conversations with family members and colleagues, they learned that Wayne had argued with Dellen over his extravagant lifestyle and had threatened to cut off his funds. Dellen was spending money recklessly and barely spent any time with his family. Wayne had planned to put a stop to this, but tragically, he never got the chance. He was found shot in the head in his own bedroom, with a gun nearby. Initially treated as a homicide, the case was surprisingly not further investigated and was eventually ruled a suicide. The detectives were now familiar with Dellen and were determined to uncover the truth, even though it was late in coming. They questioned Dellen about his father's death and discovered that the gun used to shoot Wayne had been purchased by Dellen just days before Laura Babcock disappeared. Dellen claimed he had returned home around 6 p.m. and found his father dead, but phone records contradicted this, showing he was home all afternoon on the day Wayne died. Despite mounting evidence, it wasn't enough to convict him at that point. From prison, Dellen sent over 60 letters to his girlfriend, Christina, instructing her on what to say in her statements. He ordered her to read each letter carefully and then destroy it immediately. However, Christina chose to cooperate with the police. Christina Naudga pleaded guilty to obstructing justice in Tim's murder case and received a 3-month prison sentence. Dellen and Mark blamed each other while confessing to the murders, but in these cases, it didn't matter who had pulled the trigger. Both were found guilty of the murders of Tim and Laura and were sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Additionally, Dellen received a similar sentence for his father's murder. The judge ruled that the sentences should be served consecutively. To be eligible for parole, Dellen would need to spend 75 years behind bars, marking the longest sentence ever handed down in the state. Andrea Vazquez, born on April 11, 2004, in Downey City, California, grew up with her Mexican immigrant parents, Eduardo and Ana, along with her older sister, Edlin. Despite having a small circle of friends, Andrea was well known for her intelligence, sense of humor, and cheerful personality. Her father, from a young age, encouraged her to play sports, leading Andrea to focus on soccer until the age of 14, where she had successful seasons in the Downey Soccer League. However, her true passion for fashion blossomed during high school, prompting her to pursue this interest by studying fashion design at Fullerton College while also working part-time at a mall. Andrea's love life began to flourish in her late teens when she started dating her high school sweetheart. On a fateful night on August 19, 2023, while on a date at Penn Park, a terrifying incident took place. Engrossed in their conversation inside the car, a white Toyota truck pulled up beside them. Initially dismissing it, they continued talking until the driver of the truck suddenly emerged, wielding a gun, and began shooting at the couple. Andrea was hit by a bullet and fell behind the car while her boyfriend, shocked, crouched down. Realizing Andrea was injured, her boyfriend, in a state of panic, deliberated on his next move. As the gunman advanced with the rifle raised, Andrea's boyfriend bolted, leaving her behind. Fortunately, the gunman let him go without firing more shots. Seeking assistance, Andrea's boyfriend approached another couple in the park, who then called emergency services and informed Andrea's family about the tragic incident. Using the Find My iPhone feature, Andrea's sister traced her location to a secluded area in Moreno Valley, Riverside County. When they arrived at the site before the police, they began their search. Regrettably, Andrea was nowhere to be seen, and the presence of a pool of blood in the vicinity heightened their fears. Meanwhile, Andrea's mother and aunts went to the Downey police station for help, reporting Andrea's phone location. They informed the officers, citing eyewitness accounts from the park, that a white truck had taken her, urgently requesting immediate action. Unfortunately, they faced bureaucratic hurdles and left disappointed. The Downey police mentioned they couldn't intervene right away because the location was outside their jurisdiction. They stated that stopping every white truck on the highway was not feasible. Consequently, the Downey police reached out to the Whittier station for coordinated cooperation and officially reported Andrea as missing. The Vazquez family couldn't understand this neglect. They firmly believed that jurisdictional boundaries shouldn't be an obstacle in emergencies. Fortunately, the Whittier police sprang into action as soon as they were notified. Officers were dispatched to the Moreno Valley location indicated by Andrea's phone, where they conducted extensive searches in the vast open area. They also used social media platforms to disseminate missing person alerts, hoping to receive any leads on Andrea. Believing they would find her alive, the Vazquez family organized a vigil at Penn Park, the site of Andrea's abduction, and prayed for her safe return. Sadly, around midnight on August 21st, the search concluded in sorrow. Police revealed that Andrea Vazquez's body was discovered in Whittier, approximately 48 hours after her abduction. The Moreno Valley location where the body was found was about 100 kilometers from Penn Park and not far from the location indicated on her sister's phone. Whittier police informed the family of the devastating news the following day, marking the most heart-wrenching day of their lives. Friends and family gathered at Penn Park to pray and reminisce about Andrea with cherished memories. Her mother also granted an interview to the press, calling for an end to the severe criticism aimed at Andrea's boyfriend. They harbored no resentment toward him for leaving Andrea. They believed he acted appropriately by fleeing to seek help. However, many online users disagreed. Some argued that he should have stayed and confronted the assailant. Some even speculated that he might have been involved in the incident, although these allegations were baseless. Despite this, the public backlash took a toll on him, prompting the decision to keep his identity confidential in the media. As the Vazquez family grappled with the aftermath of their tragic loss, authorities later that same day made a significant announcement regarding the case. On Monday afternoon, they revealed that Gabriel Esparza had been arrested and that the probable murder weapon had been located. His arrest actually occurred the day before, just a few hours prior to the discovery of Andrea's body. The police apprehended him without incident and impounded the white Toyota truck used in the heinous crime. The firearm Gabriel used had been registered to another family member, as California law mandates individuals to be at least 21 years old to own a gun. As the investigation was ongoing, the police chose not to disclose any further details. However, the press reported that Gabriel, a university student with no criminal record, came from a respectable family. It was also revealed that Gabriel Esparza had no prior connection to Andrea or her boyfriend, suggesting that this was a random act, and the couple happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Gabriel's lawyer mentioned that his client was frightened and only beginning to comprehend the situation following his arrest. Some legal experts saw this as a potential insanity defense strategy. On August 23, 2023, the preliminary hearing for the case occurred. Andrea's friends and family attended the courtroom, facing the perpetrator for the first time. During the hearing, prosecutors formally charged Gabriel with 7 offenses, including murder, kidnapping, and assault, with intent to commit a serious crime. Despite rumors of a confession by Gabriel, his lawyer maintained his innocence, leading to a trial postponement. A spokesperson for the Vazquez family stated that the trial might extend into 2024 or even 2025. With Gabriel Esparza pleading not guilty, it is possible that several years may elapse before a final conviction is reached. Nonetheless, regardless of the legal proceedings' duration, the Vazquez family remains steadfast in their pursuit of justice for their beloved daughter. Before we dive into our next story, if you could take a moment to hit that like button, it would mean the world to us. A single click for you is a huge boost of encouragement for us. Reina Verk was born on March 10, 1983, in Saanich, Canada. Her father, Manjeet Verk, immigrated from India, while her mother, Suman, came from an Indo-Canadian family. Suman grew up on Vancouver Island and met Manjeet in 1979 while visiting her sister, where Manjeet was on vacation. The couple moved to the coastal suburb of Vieux Royal and welcomed their first child, Rena, who was the oldest of 3 children. The Vierk family was devout, belonging to the Jehovah's Witnesses, a restorationist Christian denomination distinct from mainstream Christianity. When Rena started elementary school, her parents noticed changes in her behavior. Their daughter had become irritable and argumentative. She frequently expressed dissatisfaction with her weight, but these thoughts were not her own. They were the result of bullying she faced at school. Rena struggled to connect with her classmates, who would stick gum in her hair and criticize her weight throughout the school day. In 1994, the Vierk family decided to move and change Rena's school to put an end to the bullying. Initially, things improved, and Rena seemed to be socializing. However, during one of her outings, she encountered a group of kids smoking in a park and felt the need to connect with them. She longed to fit in with her friends who celebrated birthdays and holidays, forbidden by her religion, and envied their freedom to stay out late. Rena started running away from home frequently, which strained her relationship with her family. In the fall of 1996, a shocking event occurred when Rena alleged that she was sexually, mentally, and physically abused by her father. This led to her removal from her family home by the Ministry of Children and Family Development, placing her with her grandparents. Her father, Manjit, was arrested in 1997 awaiting trial, which deeply shocked his loved ones. Rena later moved to a foster family after feeling uncomfortable at her grandparents' home. Despite being in foster care, she still faced strict rules and a curfew. Realizing things weren't going as planned, Rena reached out to her family after a few months, admitted she had lied about her father, and charges were dropped. She was initially placed in a youth shelter before meeting a girl named Nicole Cook. Nicole had a charismatic personality that caught Rena's attention. However, over time, Nicole distanced herself from Rena due to her abnormal behavior and jealousy. One day, while Rena was at Nicole's house, she snooped through Nicole's phone and copied her contact list, reaching out to a few of the young people in it. Rena claimed that Nicole wasn't as beautiful as she seemed, that her eyebrows and breasts were fake, and that she had AIDS. When Nicole found out what Rena had done, she couldn't understand why she would do such a thing and told her friends Kelly and Missy about it. The girls decided to come together and make a plan for revenge. Kelly, Nicole's best friend, immediately agreed to the plan. The other girl, Missy, believed that Rena had slept with her boyfriend and had been harboring resentment towards her for months. On Friday, November 14th, 1997, this trio and 6 other teens gathered in a park to drink alcohol and smoke marijuana. Rena, who knew the group but had never been invited to these gatherings before, was initially hesitant when Nicole invited her. At that time, Rena was living with a foster family, but often spent time at her own home. Rena had informed her family about the invitation, but they strongly advised her to stay home due to the late hour and cold weather. Despite their concerns, Rena insisted that she would only be out for a few hours. She made her way to Shoreline School Park where the teens were gathering, but trouble quickly ensued. One of the teens broke a window, prompting the police to arrive and disperse the group, who then relocated under the Craigflower Bridge. During her time at the park, Rena called her family to reassure them of her safety and estimated she would return in about an hour. However, some girls prevented her from leaving by linking arms with her and even taking her bus pass. Amidst the commotion, Nicole confronted Rena, accusing her of trying to ruin her life. The situation escalated as Nicole insulted Rena, physically attacked her, and even extinguished a lit cigarette on her forehead, leaving Rena in shock. Subsequently, 5 other girls and a boy joined in the assault. 16-year-old Warren Glowatsky was the only male in the group. The brutal attack continued for over a minute until someone intervened, shouting, "Enough!" Rena was left on the ground bleeding, but none of the teens offered assistance. Instead, they chose to leave the scene. Nicole and Missy, needing to catch the last bus, departed, while Rena attempted to stand and make her way home. Tragically, Rena never reached home. Kelly and Warren pursued her, continuing the assault until Rena lost consciousness. They then drowned her in the nearby gorge waterway. When Rena did not return home that night, her family initially assumed she had stayed at her grandmother's place. However, the next morning, her mother realized Rena was missing and contacted Nicole and Missy. The girls denied knowledge of Rena's whereabouts and claimed they had not seen her the previous night. Consequently, Rena's family reported her missing to the police. By Monday, rumors of a girl's murder circulated at school, but the students seemed unaffected. A week later, the police arrived at Shoreline School and apprehended the 8 teens.
On the outside, you often see this boastful but once they're in front of a judge, that all kind of disappears and you often see them.
Nicole refused to give a statement, communicating solely through her lawyer, while Kelly immediately began cooperating. After the interviews, the police dispatched a dive team and a helicopter to the location Kelly disclosed to speed up the search. Tragically, Rena Verk's lifeless body was found washed ashore in Vancouver Island's Gorge Inlet. The official cause of death was established as forced drowning, as Rena's lungs contained over 20 pebbles, indicating she was alive when thrown into the water. 6 girls, including Nicole, faced aggravated assault charges for the initial attack that night. On November 21, 1997, Kelly and Warren, who were only 15 and 16 at the time, were arrested. Prosecutors decided to try them as adults, publicly revealing their names. Warren Glowatsky was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 7 years. Throughout interviews and her trial, Kelly presented a starkly different account of events, claiming she always feared causing harm and accusing Nicole of the actual killing. The court proceedings took a total of 8 years, but finally, in 2005, Kelly Ellard was sentenced to life in prison. While in prison, she became a mother and is now living in a community-based facility, caring for her baby. The other 6 individuals were tried in youth court in February 1998. All 6 were found guilty of assault and received sentences ranging from 60 days to 1 year. Warren, now 43, was released on parole in June 2010 and prefers to stay out of the public eye. In 2008, Manjit Verk wrote a book titled Rena, A Father's Story, criticizing the legal system for removing Rena from their home. The book chronicles Rena's life, her brutal murder, and the struggles she faced during the years of bullying. Joran VanDer Sloot was born on August 6, 1987, in Arnhem, Netherlands. His father, Paulus, was a lawyer, and his mother, Anita, was an art teacher. When Joran was 3, his family moved to Aruba, where he grew up with his 2 younger brothers. He stood out as an honor student at the International School of Aruba and excelled in sports like soccer and tennis. However, Anita, Joran's mother, noticed some concerning behaviors in him. He had a tendency to lie and was drawn to the nightlife with his friends. This behavior worried his family as they feared he might get into trouble at a young age. Joran wasn't just drinking, he was also frequently seen at casinos. One evening in May, Joran met a young woman named Natalie Holloway from Memphis, Tennessee, during a night out in Aruba. Born in October 1986, Natalie was the eldest child of Dave and Beth Holloway. After her parents' divorce in 1993, she and her brother were raised by their mother, who later remarried. Her stepfather, George Twitty, was a prominent businessman, and the family relocated to Alabama. In May 2005, Natalie graduated from high school with honors and planned to pursue a career in medicine in college. She went on a graduation trip to Aruba on May 25th with 124 classmates. Throughout the week, they celebrated their graduation and explored the island's nightlife. On May 29th, Joran saw Natalie and her friends in Nord and approached them to join the festivities. Later that night, Joran and Natalie met at a downtown bar where they enjoyed drinks and dancing. This turned out to be one of Natalie's final sightings before she left the bar with Joran and two others, Deepak Kalpoe, 21, and his 18-year-old brother, Satish Kalpoe. Natalie was supposed to catch a flight the next day, but when her friends gathered at the airport, she was nowhere to be found. Her belongings, including her passport and luggage, were discovered in her room at the Holiday Inn. Concerned, her friends reported her disappearance to the authorities. Aruban officials promptly initiated a search, scouring the waters around the island, but unfortunately no signs of Natalie were found. After learning that their daughter had missed her flight, Natalie's parents flew to Aruba on a private jet to launch their independent investigation. The main investigator revealed that Natalie and her group of students had been hosting wild parties in Aruba, consuming excessive amounts of alcohol, and frequently changing rooms. The investigation brought to light that Natalie drank alcohol daily and used drugs. Furthermore, it was noted that Natalie missed breakfast on 2 consecutive mornings. These specific details were shared with her family, shedding light on Natalie's lifestyle and risky behaviors in her final days. The hotel manager at their lodging provided the authorities with Joran VanDer Sloot's name and address. 2 Aruban officers then proceeded to Joran's residence. Joran confessed to meeting Natalie that night, accompanying the Kalpoe brothers to the California lighthouse and dropping her off at her hotel around 2 a.m. He recalled observing Natalie stumble as she exited the car and offering to escort her to her room, which she declined. As they drove off, they noticed a man in a black shirt approaching Natalie, assuming he was a friend. Following this account, Joran and the Kalpoe brothers were brought in for questioning by the police. Unexpectedly, later that evening, arrests were made. Initially, it was not Joran or the Kalpoe brothers who were apprehended, but former security guards from a nearby hotel. These guards were known to frequent hotels attempting to meet women and had previous encounters with law enforcement. They were detained for 8 days but were later released due to insufficient evidence. On June 9th, the authorities arrested Joran and the Kalpoe brothers on charges of kidnapping and murdering Natalie Holloway. However, due to the lack of evidence of an abduction or a body, they were released a month later on account of insufficient evidence. In the 3 months that followed the incident, a total of 7 individuals were arrested and subsequently released, including Joran's father. According to the lead investigator, these premature arrests were carried out under pressure from the Holloway family, suggesting interference in the investigation by the family. During press interviews, Joran shared his version of events. The most notable interview took place in March, during which Joran claimed that Natalie had expressed a desire to have sex with him, but he declined as he did not have a condom. He also mentioned that Natalie had proposed staying on the beach that night, a suggestion refused by the group, who then dropped her off at the hotel before heading home. 2.5 years after Natalie's disappearance, detectives reopened the case, citing new evidence. Joran VanDer Sloot, Deepak Kalpoe, and Satish Kalpoe were arrested on suspicion of causing serious bodily harm and manslaughter resulting in Natalie Holloway's death. On November 30th, a judge ordered the release of the Kalpoe brothers. 2 weeks later, Joran was also released. Then on March 29, 2010, a bizarre twist occurred when Joran contacted Natalie's family lawyers, claiming he knew the location of Natalie Holloway's body and the circumstances surrounding her death. However, he demanded $250,000 in exchange for this information. The lawyer reported this unusual offer to the FBI, and together they devised a plan. Initially, $10,000 in cash was handed over, followed by a $15,000 wire transfer to Joran's bank account. However, the authorities found the information provided to be false, as the location he specified had not been constructed at the time of Natalie's disappearance. By 2012, Natalie was legally declared dead. Her disappearance remained unresolved, and if deceased, her body was never found. 5 years after Natalie vanished, another girl would go missing, this time in Peru. Stephanie Flores, a 21-year-old business student at Lima University, and the daughter of businessman Ricardo Flores, had a bright future ahead of her. On May 14, 2010, Joran VanDer Sloot decided to participate in a Latin American poker tournament and entered Peru via Colombia. Ironically, the tournament date coincided with the 5th anniversary of Natalie's disappearance. On May 30th, he met Stephanie at the Atlantic City Casino. According to Joran's mother, Anita, her son was supposed to be receiving mental health treatment in the Netherlands, but instead went to Peru to gamble. He met Stephanie while playing cards and invited her to his hotel room. They entered room 3009, and these moments were captured by security cameras. In early June, Flores' family noticed she was missing and reported it to the police. The hotel staff was questioned and mentioned seeing Joran and Stephanie together. Upon reviewing the security footage from the night of the incident, they observed the two entering the room, but only Joran was seen leaving. Stephanie's bruised body was found in room 309. Stephanie's father mentioned that jewelry, credit cards, and over $10,000 were missing from her car. A tennis racket discovered in the room was identified as the murder weapon. Authorities quickly located Joran in Chile, and he was arrested. Initially, he professed his innocence, but 4 days later, he admitted to killing the young woman. In his statement to the Peruvian police, he recounted playing poker with Stephanie in his room. When she saw something about the Natalie case on his computer, it angered him. He hit her face with his elbow, grabbed her throat, smashed her head against the wall, and then strangled her. Joran later retracted his confession, stating he spoke out of fear and confusion, alleging that Peruvian authorities had deceived him by promising leniency and extradition to the Netherlands if he told them what they wanted to hear. Eventually, he reverted to his initial confession, acknowledging the murder of Stephanie exactly as he first described. Joran's mother, Anita, insisted that her son had no involvement in Natalie's disappearance, maintaining he hadn't seen her after dropping her off at the beach. In January 2012, Joran VanDer Sloot was convicted of Stephanie Flores' murder and received a 28-year prison sentence. After serving 11 years in prison, he was extradited from Peru to the United States on June 8, 2023. The following day, June 9th, he faced trial in a federal court for extortion and wire fraud against Natalie Holloway's mother, Beth Holloway. October 18, 2023, was a significant date for the Holloway family. In a plea agreement, Joran confessed to killing Natalie. That evening, he made sexual advances towards her and, upon rejection, kicked and struck her with a cinder block before disposing of her body in the ocean. Haley Anderson, born on May 9, 1995 in Westbury, New York, was known for her unwavering support for friends, her cheerful demeanor, and her attentive listening skills. She pursued her dream of becoming a nurse at Binghamton University, aiming to make a difference in people's lives during their most vulnerable moments. She was determined, and her passion led her to be accepted into the nursing program. On the evening of March 7, 2018, Haley and her roommates gathered to play board games late into the night. However, the next morning, her roommate Josie texted Haley and received no response, assuming she was still asleep. Throughout Thursday, all attempts to reach Haley went unanswered, causing her friends to worry. Despite promising Josie she would attend a poetry night that evening, Haley remained unreachable. Taking action on March 9, 2018, another roommate, Michelle, used the Find My Friends app to track Haley's phone to a friend's apartment on the west side of Binghamton. Orlando Tercero, originally from Nicaragua, aimed to follow in his father's footsteps as a doctor. He and Haley became close friends during her second year in the nursing program, frequently spending time together at off-campus parties and at Haley's apartment with her roommate Josie. Haley also had a boyfriend named Kevin, whom she met at university, but she had reservations about the seriousness of their relationship. At a party, she introduced Kevin to her friend Orlando, leading to an unexpected turn of events. One morning, after Kevin stayed over at Haley's apartment, he discovered slashed tires on her car, fueling Haley's suspicion of having an enemy. Haley confronted Orlando, believing he was involved, but he denied any wrongdoing. Despite Orlando's denial, Haley's mother, Karen, suspected him of having romantic feelings for her daughter. Following this incident, Haley distanced herself from Orlando, despite the encouragement of her friends and family to do the same. Eventually, she allowed him back into her life. On March 9th, the day Haley disappeared, marked 6 months since the tire slashing incident, with no reported problems during that time. Josie tracked Haley's location to a house and immediately called the police, informing them about finding Haley's phone and urging them to come quickly. While waiting for the police, they knocked on the door but were met with complete silence. They then noticed an open window. Michelle climbed in first, followed by Josie, and they discovered Haley's lifeless body in Orlando's bedroom. The police arrived shortly after and found disturbing evidence. Metal hooks had been screwed into the entryway with a tie threaded through them. A chair was positioned at the entrance, with gauze and paper towels scattered on the kitchen counter. There was also a suicide note written in Spanish. The author of the note expressed deep sorrow, apologized for his actions, and mentioned he would soon join his father, who had passed away 5 years earlier, confirming Orlando as the note's author. Based on the evidence, investigators concluded that Orlando had attempted to take his own life, but had failed, injuring himself in the process. Examinations of Haley's body revealed bruising around her neck and facial hemorrhages, indicating she had been strangled. Detectives, now treating the case as a murder investigation, identified Orlando Tercero as the person of interest and began searching for him, but he was nowhere to be found. That afternoon, police officers visited Karen's home to deliver the tragic news of Haley's death. Karen, Haley's mother, was unaware of her daughter's disappearance since they didn't communicate daily, only speaking on Sundays. As detectives delved into the investigation, they interviewed friends of both Haley and Orlando, with many acquaintances cooperating with the police. The findings pointed to Orlando's obsession with Haley, displaying jealousy and attempting to control her. He tried to isolate her from friends, acted possessively, and became angry when she spent time with others. With his tragic tales, Orlando managed to deceive Haley, manipulating her kind nature and gaining control over her. While authorities searched for Orlando, they first questioned his sister. On the day of the murder, Orlando had sent her messages admitting he had done something terrible that would bring shame to the family. He also told his sister that he had left his car at John F. Kennedy Airport, which was crucial information for the detectives. Authorities began investigating Tercero's flight records and confirmed that he had flown back to his home in Nicaragua. They also reviewed the security camera footage at Orlando's apartment complex, where they discovered crucial evidence. The footage showed Haley entering the building early on the morning of March 8th, her final appearance tragically. 7 hours later, Orlando was seen leaving the apartment alone, raising suspicions about his whereabouts. Following a bill found at the scene, investigators traced Orlando to a pharmacy where he purchased 2 different brands of sleeping pills. 16 hours before Haley's body was discovered, Orlando left his residence for the airport, his head wrapped in a bandage as seen on camera, confirming his failed suicide attempt. Upon his arrival at the Nicaraguan airport, Orlando was greeted by his mother, Martha Moreno, who took him to her hometown and kept him hidden for a few days. They eventually left the house to seek medical attention for his injuries, but by then, the Nicaraguan police were already on his trail. Orlando was apprehended near the hospital on March 13, 2018, and his capture was announced publicly the following day. Although U.S. authorities requested Orlando's extradition, Nicaragua declined due to an agreement between the two countries that protects their citizens. Orlando's trial in Nicaragua began on October 1, 2019, with his family and friends present. the Binghamton detectives presented compelling evidence, including CCTV footage and a handwritten note found at the crime scene, to the judge. Orlando's defense attorney argued that his client was under the influence of alcohol and not in the right state of mind during the crime. The defense called Orlando's psychiatrist as a witness in an attempt to mitigate his punishment. On November 1, 2019, Orlando Tercero was found guilty of Haley's murder and sentenced to the maximum penalty in Nicaragua, 30 years in prison. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented, Orlando's friends staunchly maintained his innocence, believing he could not have committed such a horrific act. Melissa Jenkins was born on November 23, 1978, in Vermont, USA. She was working as a science teacher at an academy in Vermont. Aside from her teaching job, Melissa also coached the school's basketball team and was active in social events. She lived with her 2-year-old son and faced life's challenges alone. To make ends meet, she decided to work 2 jobs, spending her evenings and weekends as a waitress at a local restaurant. Despite her exhausting schedule, she always seemed content. However, on March 25, 2012, Melissa suddenly disappeared, and none of her friends could reach her. Throughout that evening, her friends tried to contact her, knowing she wouldn't be working and would be with her son. Concerned for her safety, Melissa's boyfriend called 911. The police then reached out to Melissa's friends and uncovered some odd circumstances. That night, Melissa called several friends, explaining she was experiencing car trouble. Despite the multiple calls, none of her friends could assist and no one heard from her again. When questioned by the police, her boyfriend mentioned he had searched for Melissa that night, but found no trace of her. He noted that her voice had sounded strange on the phone, which worried him after their conversation ended. Eventually, it was her boyfriend who located her car abandoned on Goss Hollow Road, an uncommon route for her. The car was still running, with no sign of Melissa inside, but the most alarming detail was her child remaining strapped in the back seat. Upon making this disturbing discovery, her boyfriend immediately alerted the police, providing all the details. When the police arrived, they removed the child from the scene and found footprints, stains, and unidentified tire marks around the car, indicating a possible struggle. A baseball cap found at the front of the car did not belong to Melissa. The police grew increasingly suspicious upon finding Melissa's cell phone at the end of the tire tracks, crushed and unusable, offering little valuable information. A pivotal piece of evidence in the investigation was Melissa's 2-year-old son, as it was believed he may have witnessed what occurred that night. Initially placed with Melissa's family, detectives shifted their focus to Melissa's boyfriend, who gave conflicting statements during questioning. Melissa's brother disclosed that her boyfriend wanted a serious relationship, while Melissa was not ready for such a commitment with a young son. Allegations emerged that the boyfriend had pressured her to commit more fully, prompting detectives to compare his boot tread patterns with those found at the scene, ultimately eliminating him as a suspect. The following day, investigators brought in a detective specialized in interviewing children to speak with Melissa's son. They wanted him to recount what he remembered from the night his mother went missing. The boy shared crucial details about the incident, mentioning that his mother was attacked by 2 people. When asked further, he demonstrated by clutching his throat and said, "Mommy cried." Following this troubling disclosure, the focus shifted to Melissa's ex-husband, who lived around 100 kilometers away. Even though he was thoroughly questioned, he had a solid alibi for that night, promptly clearing him of suspicion. The investigation advanced to meticulously searching Melissa's home, examining every corner of the property. Despite their thorough efforts, there were no signs of a struggle, leaving them at a standstill. However, during the search, they noticed a seemingly insignificant detail: a business card for Alan and Patricia Prue's snow removal service. Although its relevance was initially unclear, upon further scrutiny, it appeared to be recently acquired. As the investigation deepened, the detectives grew more convinced that Melissa was no longer alive, mentally preparing for the worst-case scenario. The evidence surrounding the vehicle indicated that the perpetrators had intended to harm Melissa and showed no intention of leaving her unharmed. Search efforts were extended to every possible location where evidence could have been disposed of, such as ditches, yet each search turned up empty. Approximately 24 hours after the vehicle's discovery, a breakthrough in the case occurred. A local resident contacted the police from a nearby boat dock, reporting a suspicious sight while fishing. The detectives hurried to the location. As they approached the mysterious object in the water, they realized it wasn't just an object but a woman's body, Melissa Jenkins. They were unable to immediately retrieve the body from the water, prompting the involvement of a dive team for further investigation. Melissa's body had been anchored to the bottom with construction stones and thick ropes. With considerable effort, they successfully recovered her body. Although images from the scene remained confidential, it was disclosed that Melissa had been placed face down in the water. Every piece of evidence from the site was transferred back to the headquarters. Sticks and brush were used to obscure the body's location in the water, indicating that the attack had been carried out in a disorganized manner and that the perpetrators were ill-prepared for their actions. The autopsy revealed that Melissa's body was covered in bruises and had numerous severe injuries, indicating the repeated use of a stun gun and death by manual strangulation. These details suggested a close, personal attack, which didn't align with the evidence the detectives had collected. Initially, they thought it was a random assault. To gather more information, the detectives retraced Melissa's steps from that day and looked into whom she had spoken to that evening. Phone records showed a call to Melissa from a prepaid phone around 8:30 p.m., which stood out because the phone had been used only for that one call, prompting the detectives to investigate further. They traced the phone to the store where it was purchased and discovered it was bought with a check signed by Patricia Prue, whose name matched the business card found in Melissa's home. Surprisingly, Alan and Patricia Prue showed up at the police station the same day, eager to speak with the officers. Patricia claimed her identity had been stolen and suspected her ex-husband was involved. When Melissa Jenkins was mentioned, the Prue couple admitted to knowing her and being friends, although they hadn't seen her recently. They used to meet for work during the winter months, a fact corroborated by Melissa's friends and family. Initially friendly with the Prues, Melissa had distanced herself from them due to Alan's unwelcome romantic advances. Despite his repeated requests for a date, Melissa always turned him down, leading to the termination of their business relationship. The Prue couple was allowed to leave the station that day, but were kept under police surveillance in the following days. Subsequently, detectives reviewed the security footage from the store where the phone was bought, capturing both Alan and Patricia on camera, as expected. During the interrogation, Alan mentioned he had gone to a restaurant that evening, and the detectives requested the surveillance footage. Upon reviewing it, they came across an unexpected piece of evidence. The hat found next to Melissa's car was actually worn by Alan that day. Subsequently, the couple was brought in for questioning again and interrogated separately. While Patricia denied any involvement in the crime, Alan crumbled under pressure. According to Alan, Patricia was bisexual, and they had started seeking excitement in their relationship. This led them to invite others into their bedroom, with Melissa becoming their targeted next guest. They misled Melissa by claiming to have relationship problems and seeking her support. Unaware of their true intentions, Melissa agreed to meet with them. However, upon her arrival, Alan's attempted seduction was met with resistance from Melissa. Subsequently, Patricia intervened and tragically ended Melissa's life in a matter of seconds. They then placed the body in the car and deliberated on their next steps. Amidst the chaos, panic ensued when they noticed Melissa's young son observing them from the back seat, unbeknownst to them previously. Alan, not recognizing his actions that night, maintained his innocence by insisting his intention was never to kill. Instead, he claimed that Patricia, in a sudden fit of rage, was responsible for the murder. Although he confessed his involvement and was willing to accept any punishment, asserting he never intended to take a life, their blame-shifting behavior continued until the trial. At the trial, both parties sought to shift the blame, leaving the true mastermind behind the murder undetermined. Nevertheless, the jury found both guilty, resulting in a life sentence for the couple. Jamie and Jennifer Faith were residents of Oak Cliff in Texas. Jennifer had been married twice before and had a daughter named Amber from her first marriage. Her ex-husband, who did not want children, was the reason for their breakup. When Jennifer discovered she was pregnant while completing her thesis, she welcomed Amber into the world that same year. In 2005, Jamie and Jennifer first crossed paths at a party, where they hit it off immediately. Their friends and family viewed them as the perfect couple. Jamie was devoted to his family, and Amber viewed him as her stepfather. She even expressed a desire for Jamie to officially adopt her, a request he happily fulfilled. Everything appeared to be falling into place for the family. Jennifer worked in healthcare management, while Jamie was an IT manager at American Airlines. Due to a job transfer for Jamie, they relocated to Dallas and settled contentedly in Oak Cliff. On October 8, 2020, the couple marked their 15th anniversary by taking their dog, Maggie, for a morning walk. As they left their home, an assailant wearing a mask approached from behind and shot Jamie 9 times. Jamie sustained 7 gunshot wounds to the head, chest, and groin. Jennifer's cries alerted their neighbors, who promptly came to their aid. The attacker wrestled with Jennifer, attempted to take Jamie's ring, and even menaced their dog before escaping in a truck with the wedding band. The police responded swiftly but sadly could not save Jamie, who succumbed to his injuries. Jennifer, in a state of shock, bore witness to her husband's brutal murder the day following their anniversary, leaving everyone bewildered by the senseless violence. The police, baffled by the motive and lacking leads, launched an investigation. Despite being the initial person questioned, Jennifer was unable to shed light on the violent act. Jamie, a man with no known enemies, became one of the many unresolved homicides in Dallas in 2020, where over 200 cases were reported. The attacker's audaciousness and calculated risks hinted at a personal and intentional assault. Jennifer told the police that the assailant was a man who appeared quite burly, wearing a dark hoodie and a face mask. Another neighbor who came to help had also seen the attacker and confirmed Jennifer's description. The police only had minimal leads, including the use of a .45 caliber handgun and a sighting of the culprit fleeing in a black Nissan Titan. In a heartwarming display of support, a GoFundMe campaign was initiated to aid Jennifer financially. The community rallied together, raising over $60,000 to cover funeral expenses. Neighbors took turns preparing meals for Jennifer to ensure she felt cared for.
That at some point, maybe this person can recognize the gravity of what they've done and feel some sort of guilt enough to come forward.
After the murder, police...
Detectives encountered no solid leads on potential suspects for the crime. Jamie's security camera captured dubious activity, showing a man on the adjacent vacant property on the evening preceding the attack, a match to Jennifer's description of the assailant. Robbery was ruled out by the police as they deemed the killing as a premeditated act. The police wanted to speak with Jennifer again and check her phone for more clues. Jennifer readily handed over her phone. What they discovered was intriguing. Jennifer had messaged a friend, admitting to an emotional affair with a man named Darren. However, there were no messages or call history between Jennifer and Darren on her phone. This led the police to investigate Darren's last name and location. They found Darren Lopez residing on a large rural property just outside Nashville. Local authorities learned he owned a black truck. This information was passed to the Dallas police, who used helicopters to confirm the truck's presence at Darren's property. Darren was promptly taken into custody, and his bank and phone records were confiscated. Despite no messages about Darren on Jennifer's phone, Darren hadn't deleted anything between September 20th and October 20th. Over 2,000 calls and hundreds of texts had been exchanged between Darren and Jennifer, yet there was complete silence on October 8th, the day Jamie was shot. When investigating Jamie and Jennifer's address on Google Maps, Darren began a roughly 12-hour drive. Credit card records revealed he had made stops at various gas stations for fuel and groceries along the way. Jennifer and Darren suddenly emerged as prime suspects in the murder investigation, prompting questions about their relationship. During high school and college, Darren and Jennifer dated, but they drifted apart when Darren completed his education and was deployed to Korea. Jennifer moved on and got married, while Darren started his own family, eventually having 4 daughters. However, he divorced his wife in 2018. According to his friends, Darren became increasingly isolated and began struggling with PTSD after his military service. In March 2020, Darren decided to reconnect with old acquaintances. He reached out to Jennifer through LinkedIn, confessing he had been following her on social media. Jennifer responded a few hours later, looking visibly surprised. The two then began an emotional relationship. Jennifer referred to Darren as her soulmate, while Darren was more reserved, often stating he didn't want to interfere with her marriage. Jennifer confided that things with Jamie were strained and lacked intimacy. Furthermore, Jennifer financially supported Darren by purchasing him a new television and giving him a credit card for expenses. By 2021, the police had gathered enough evidence to arrest Darren. On January 10th, Jennifer was taken into custody again and was instructed to message Darren, informing him that she would reset her phone to factory settings and delete the messages. The following day, January 11th, the police arrested Darren at his home, charging him with Jamie Faith's murder. A search of Jamie's home led to the discovery of the suspected murder weapon, which ballistics tests confirmed and even revealed Jamie's blood on the gun. The evidence didn't end there. A blue face mask reportedly worn by Darren on the day of the murder was found in his car. Following Darren's arrest, the police questioned Jennifer again, but she denied any romantic involvement. She admitted to reconnecting with him and growing close, but claimed no involvement in the murder, stating she had been tirelessly searching for her husband's killer for months. A week later, Jennifer made a significant error by transferring $118,000 from her checking account to another account. Shortly after, she messaged someone requesting them to contact Darren, stating, "I have to be very cautious as I'm being watched. Please relay to him that I'll always be his." Darren replied through the same person saying, "Please remain strong for us." In February 2021, Jennifer Faith faced charges of obstruction of justice related to her husband's murder investigation. Despite her innocence claims, the truth unfolded through email examinations. Jennifer had created a fake email account under Jamie's name to correspond with Darren. In these emails, Jennifer portrayed Jamie as an abuser, describing instances of sexual and physical violence. She sent purported photos of injuries to Darren, all either fabricated or sourced from stock photo sites. There was no evidence to support the abuse claims. However, Darren fell for the deception, responding to what he believed were messages from Jamie, stating, "I talk to her at night because she's scared of you. You give her nightmares. I will ensure her safety and do whatever it takes." In another email, Jennifer sent a photo of a wound on her neck, writing, "Enjoy knowing there's nothing you can do about this." Jennifer's unsettling tactics to capture Darren's attention aimed to manipulate him thoroughly. Surprisingly, Jamie discovered Jennifer's relationship with Darren. Though he only learned about their messages, not the lies Jennifer had spun. In August, Jennifer confided in a friend about Jamie's deep hurt from her affair with Darren and her inability to carry on with it. Still committed to her agenda, Jennifer crafted another fake email address, posing as a friend who witnessed the abuse, pleading with Darren to rescue Jennifer. Subsequently, she called Darren using her phone, urging him to eliminate Jamie, stating she would perish if he didn't intervene. To make it appear as a botched robbery, Darren drove for 10 hours, sneaked into the side yard, waited for the perfect moment, shot Jamie, grabbed his ring, and then fled. The detectives were left stunned by the shocking revelations that emerged during the investigation. Meanwhile, Darren awaited his trial in prison. Jennifer penned a letter to Darren vehemently denying any deceit on her part and disavowing involvement in sending emails from fake accounts. Her legal team warned her about the potential of facing the death penalty if found guilty. Eventually, Jennifer had a change of heart, confessed to her role in the murder, and detailed the abuse she suffered at the hands of Jamie in a statement. However, her last-minute efforts failed to persuade the jury. Jennifer Faith was sentenced to life in prison for Jamie Faith's murder, with the judge branding her as pure evil during the courtroom proceedings. Additionally, Jennifer was ordered to pay $6,500 in restitution to Jamie's family and $250,000 while serving her sentence. Ironically, Jennifer claimed $200,000 of Jamie's assets, prompting detectives to describe her as spineless and exposing her selfish nature. Despite maintaining his innocence, Darren had his trial scheduled for July 2023. His legal team planned to argue that he was easily influenced due to PTSD and brain injuries manipulated by Jennifer. On July 1st, 2023, nearly 3 years after Jamie's death, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Darren Lopez was found guilty of Jamie Faith's murder and was sentenced to 62 years in prison. We traveled to Brooklyn, a small town in Iowa with a population of 2,000. Molly Tibbetts was born on May 8, 1998, in San Francisco, California. She was raised in a loving family and had a happy childhood until the 2nd grade, when her life took a turn. Soon after, her parents divorced, presenting Molly with her first major challenge. She and her siblings moved to Iowa with their mother, and over time, they adjusted to their new home. Molly attended Malcolm Middle School in town and later Brooklyn High School. In 2015, Molly met Dalton Jack, a senior and an ambitious athlete, at a football game. They spent time together after the game and quickly fell in love. 2 years later, Molly was accepted into the psychology program at the University of Iowa, while Dalton pursued his career in construction. After completing her first year at the university, Molly returned home for summer break in May 2018. She worked at a regional medical center during the day and reviewed her university courses in the evenings. Despite her busy schedule, she didn't neglect her passion for running, as she had been a cross-country runner in the past. Most evenings, she would go for a run after sunset, often traveling between her mother's house and her boyfriend's place. On July 18, 2018, Molly spent the night at the house shared by Dalton's brother and their dogs. Both Dalton and his brother were out of town for work, but the dogs needed care, so Molly agreed to look after them for 2 days. Around 7:30 p.m., she sent Dalton a selfie, then got dressed in her running gear and headed out for her usual run through the cornfields. That day, she chose one of her regular routes, planning to run nearly 10 kilometers, surrounded by towering corn stalks. A severe storm hit the area on the night of July 18th, but the weather cleared up by the next morning. When Dalton didn't receive a response from Molly that night, he assumed she was busy and went to sleep. The next morning, he noticed his messages were still unanswered. Dalton reached out to Molly's family and friends, but no one had heard from her. As their worry grew, Molly's employer called Dalton, informing him that she hadn't shown up for work, adding to their fears. It was apparent that something terrible had happened to Molly, but no one knew what. They immediately reported her disappearance to the police. The police quickly launched a search operation, distributing missing posters throughout the town and searching the surrounding areas thoroughly. Dalton and his brother returned from their trip and decided to search for Molly themselves, driving around the area. The recent storm gave them hope that she might have simply fallen and injured herself. Molly's family, friends, and volunteers from across America joined the search efforts. Those who couldn't participate in person supported with donations. Investigating Molly's life, detectives found no signs of unusual danger. She didn't use drugs or alcohol and had no known enemies. She had good relationships with her friends and family. In fact, no one had anything bad to say about her. She didn't even use foul language in her text messages. In the initial stages of the investigation, more than 40 detectives were dedicated to the case, following various leads and interviewing nearly everyone involved. The main focus was on Molly's inner circle, which included her siblings and parents. Dalton cooperated by allowing a search of his house and car. Many locals suspected Dalton and thought he should be investigated, a common occurrence, as the boyfriend is often the prime suspect in such cases. On July 25th, the lead detective dispelled the rumors circulating in town by confirming that Dalton had been cleared as a suspect. Due to the intense heat, there was a decrease in volunteers participating in searches, leading to a shift in focus to Molly's digital trail. A data analyst made a crucial discovery indicating that Molly had moved approximately 10 minutes east that evening, consistent with her running pace. Later, around 8:30 p.m., her phone had traveled 8 kilometers south at a speed of about 100 kilometers per hour, suggesting a change from running to entering a vehicle. Despite the lack of new information, authorities persisted in the investigation. With only one eyewitness citing Molly running eastward, the police had limited leads. Over time, a reward of up to $400,000 was offered for any information about Molly's whereabouts. Several weeks later, a breakthrough occurred when a neighbor to the northeast of town provided security camera footage to the police. The footage showed a woman jogging, followed by a car heading in her direction. Subsequently, the same car returned at a greater speed. Upon analysis, it was confirmed that the jogger was Molly. Following this discovery, authorities began monitoring the car owner, whose identity was revealed due to the town's small size. The car was tracked down, and after questioning the driver, John Budd, an officer noted his suspicious behavior. Even though John, a dairy farm worker, was allowed to leave, the police kept an eye on him as he started using his girlfriend's vehicle. A few days later, he was asked to come to the police station, where, following hours of interrogation, he confessed to his real identity as Christian Rivera. Christian, at the age of 24, immigrated from Mexico several years ago, but he did not have legal permission to work in the United States. He had been living in Iowa for quite some time, working on various farms since his arrival. At the time, he was employed at a farm near Brooklyn. Investigators continued to question him, believing he knew something about Molly's disappearance. Christian eventually confessed that he had seen her on the evening she went missing. He saw Molly running and decided to approach her, but she was not interested and continued on her way. After 10 hours of interrogation, Christian finally revealed the truth to the detectives. The events unfolded as follows. Christian pulled his car over, got out and ran to catch up with Molly, then started running alongside her. Although Molly was usually polite to strangers, she quickly sensed something was wrong and asked Christian to stay away from her. At one point, she took out her phone and threatened to call the police if he did not back off. This threat angered Christian. A side note is that Christian had no prior criminal record, and his family claimed he had never shown any violent tendencies. However, he was very afraid of being deported and facing legal consequences. so he avoided any trouble. After the threat, Christian lost control and tried to grab her. Molly screamed as she struggled to get away. When detectives later asked what happened next, Christian said he could not remember. The only thing he recalled was driving out of town with Molly's body in his trunk. He drove to a secluded area, took her body out of the trunk, and hid it in a cornfield, covering it with corn stalks. He then returned to the farm where he worked. Following the interrogation, Christian agreed to lead the detectives to a location outside of Brooklyn, where a horrifying discovery was made in the cornfields. They found Molly Tibbetts' partially clothed body, dressed only in a sports bra and socks. Her body had started to decompose over time. She had been stabbed 12 times in the chest, ribs, and neck. It was clear she had died in agony. In their examination of Christian's car, the police found Molly's DNA, confirming his guilt. Although Rivera had confessed to the murder, he retracted his statement during the trial, claiming that 2 other individuals had killed Molly. This claim prompted Christian's defense team to request a retrial, which was scheduled for May 17, 2021. During the trial, Christian alleged that detectives had coerced his confession and that 2 armed men had killed Molly. However, the jury did not believe his defense, and on May 28, 2021, Rivera was found guilty of Molly Tibbetts' murder.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Christian Bahina Rivera, guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
On August 30, 2021, Christian Rivera was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.